Today we are going to look at respiration in biology. Respiration is the breaking down of glucose to give us energy. Our definition of respiration is, it is a catabolic process in which glucose is broken down either with oxygen, in that case it's aerobic respiration, or without oxygen, anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration involves two stages, which are the external respiration, that's the part of respiration that brings in oxygen to the body, and internal or tissue respiration, which is the actual respiration taking place inside the cell that involves the breaking down of food to give us energy. Aerobic respiration can be summarized by a chemical equation like this. This is glucose molecule C6H12O6. When in presence of oxygen, the sugar is broken down into 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, releasing as much as 38 molecules of ATP. You can see that sugar molecule, the structure, the molecular structure is larger than what is the product are. Look at water, carbon dioxide, and look at the molecule here. This is why they define this respiration as a catabolic process. This complex molecule have been broken down to smaller molecules. With oxygen, this is complete breaking down of the sugar molecule. Let's look at aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is also summarized with two equations. Why are we separating them? The aerobic respiration in animal tissue is different from that of plant tissue. In plant tissue, the sugar is broken down into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Look at molecules of energy produced, only 2 molecules of ATP. It shows that it is an incomplete combustion. Then, in animal tissue, it's an acid that is produced. With the help of enzyme, glucose is broken down into this acid, and this acid is lactic acid. Lactic acid. Again, only 2 molecules of energy is produced. Example 1. The following structures are respiratory structures with one exception. Which one is the exception? A. Book lungs. B. Phlegm cells. C. Stomata. D. Spiracles. Here we are expected to know the structures of respiration or respiratory surfaces in different organisms. A. Book lungs. This is the respiratory surface for animals like arachnids, e.g. spider. Stomata. These are tiny microscopic spores on leaves for gaseous diffusion into this tissue and outside the tissue. So it's for respiration. Spiracles are also pores found in the body of insects and some other animal like millipede. But phlegm cells are not for respiration. They are excretory structures in flatworms like tapeworm. So the exception here is only phlegm cell, which is B. So B is the answer. B is the answer. Example 2. Gill rakers of fish are used for A. Feeding, B. Excretion, C. Breathing, D. Chewing. Here we are expected to know the respiratory structure of fish. Now we know that respiratory structure of fish is gill. The gill rakers are found on the gill chambers by the size of the head of the fish. And the gills are made up of these parts. The gill arc, which is more or less bone like bone, which supports the gill rakers and the gill filaments. The gill filaments have blood supply where gaseous exchange takes place. But the gill rakers are used to filter food from the water that enters the mouth and the gills. So, let's answer the question now. So, it's very easy for us now to pick the answer to question 2. Gill rakers of fish are used for feeding because it's used to filter food from water that swim around the gills. So our answer is A. Example 3. Which of the following processes does not occur during inhalation in mammals? Option A. Intercostal muscles contract and the ribs move outwards. B. Diaphragm contracts to become flattened. C. Intercostal muscles relax for the ribs to move upwards. D. The enlargement of pleural cavity and expansion of the lungs. This question requires that everyone should know the respiratory mechanism in mammal. In other words, you should know the system through which air is drawn into the lungs and out of the lungs. So let's look at the diagram of mammalian respiratory system. The respiratory system in man comprises these structures. As you can recognize, this is the head. On the head you have the nostril. The nostril have nasal canal and end up at the back of the tongue, that is the pharynx. From there the air enters this tube, which we call windpipe or the trachea. The trachea branches to bronchi, one of them bronchus. Each of the bronchi branches into bronchioles. These are fine branches and end up in air sacs, which we also refer to as alveolus. Now, the ribs are by the side of the lungs. This is the lung. The ribs are covered with muscles, outside and inside. The outside is the external intercostal muscle. Inside is internal intercostal muscle. Now, in mammals, there is a muscle that separates the thoracic cavity from abdominal cavity. This muscle is the diaphragm. Take note of this tube, the gullet or the esophagus. It's cut here because it's not part of the respiratory system. It goes straight to the stomach. Now, the mechanism of respiration is this. The intercostal muscles around the ribs and the diaphragm, they contract. The intercostal muscle, when it contracts, become lowered and flattened. As this process makes the thoracic cavity to be enlarged, and so the pleural membrane and the lungs also enlarge. The enlargement of the pleural membrane and the lungs itself create low pressure inside the lungs, and that makes air to flow through the nostril down to the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and into alveoli. Let's now look at the answer to number 3. Which of the following processes does not occur during inhalation in mammals? A. Intercostal muscles contract and ribs move upwards. That's correct. B. Diaphragm contracts to become flattened. That's correct. C. Intercostal muscles relax for ribs to move upward. That is not correct. D. The enlargement of pleural cavity and expansion of the lungs makes air to flow in. That's correct. So the answer to the question, which is the exception to this process, is C, which is intercostal muscle relax for ribs to move upwards. Example 4. The correct path through which air flows from atmosphere to the alveolus in the lung of a rat is A. Nursery to pharynx, pharynx to trachea, trachea to bronchiole, bronchiole to bronchus, from bronchus to the alveolus. B. Nursery to trachea, trachea to pharynx, pharynx to bronchus, bronchus to bronchioles, and bronchiole to alveolus. C. Nursery to pharynx, pharynx to bronchus, bronchus to alveolus, alveolus to trachea, trachea to bronchiole. D. Nursery to pharynx, pharynx to trachea, trachea to bronchus, and bronchus to bronchiole, bronchiole to alveolus. This question expects us to trace the path through which the air flows into the alveoli. Now, it's from nursery to trachea, trachea to bronchus, bronchus to bronchiole, bronchioles to alveolus. So we go to the question, to the options, and see the one that is correctly arranged as the body, as the structure is. The option that answers the question is D, is nursery to pharynx, from pharynx to trachea, trachea to bronchus, from the bronchus to bronchioles, and from the bronchiole to alveolus. So D is the answer to this question. Example 5. Which of these structures is used by mosquito larvae for respiration? A. Lungs, B. Spiracles, C. Siphons, and D. Skin. This is a straightforward question. You have to understand the structure of larvae and how they take in oxygen. This is a straightforward question. You just have to understand the structure of a larva, the structure it uses for taking in air and giving out carbon dioxide. We know A belongs to most vertebrates. Spiracle, you talk about insects. Of course, skin is not known for the larvae. We can talk of earthworm and the protozoa. So the answer is siphon, which comes out of the water to take air. So answer to number 5 is C.